Okay, so today we're going to talk about a standard form of an equation of a quadratic and work on finding a couple things. So if you recall, we talked about vertex form in the past, and we had the formula a is equal to x minus h squared plus k, where our vertex was that hk value, and then we found the axis of symmetry, and we did various things from that. And we called this vertex form. Today what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about what we call standard form. And standard form is any quadratic that's in the form a of x squared plus bx plus c, where a cannot equal 0. And if a was 0, then we'd have linear. And anytime we talk about this, and again, it's standard form, we always have to have it solved for y, or f of x, whatever is put there. So what we're going to work on today is we're going to work on finding three things. The first thing we're going to work on, or four things, really. First thing we're going to do is we've talked about what AOS is. It means the axis of symmetry. We're going to start by finding the axis of symmetry, which is a little bit different than we did when we were talking about it in vertex form. In vertex form, we found the vertex first and then found the axis of symmetry. When it's in standard form, we're going to find the axis of symmetry first by using the formula x is equal to negative b over 2a. So that's the first thing we're going to find. The next thing we're going to find is we're going to find the vertex. The vertex in this case is going to be that value of our axis of symmetry. That's going to be our x value. And then we can evaluate that to find our y value. And we'll talk about what that means here in just a little bit. It looks complicated, but it's not too bad. The next thing we're going to find is we're going to find the y-intercept. And that's really pretty easy to find. It's when our x value is equal to 0, because that's the y-axis. And then if you kind of look up there, if we plug 0 into the standard form, we've got a times 0 squared plus b times 0. Anything times 0 is 0. So all we have left is c. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and graph it. So this is kind of what we're going to look at today. And these are the things that we want to be able to do by the end of the lesson. So we want to be able to find that axis of symmetry, find the vertex, find the y-intercept, and then go ahead and graph it. I graph as we go along, but we're going to do all four of those parts. So let's do our first example. So let's say that we have y is equal to 2x squared minus 12x plus 7. So it's in standard form. We've got 2x squared minus 12x plus 7, so it's in standard form. First thing I like to do is I like to list my a, b's, and c's. So my a value is the value that's out in front of the x squared. So my a value is 2. My b value is the value that's out in front of my x and including the symbol. So that's negative 12. And my c value in this case is 7. So I've got my A, B, and C now all listed. That's going to help me then find our axis of symmetry. To find the axis of symmetry, we're going to use the formula x is equal to negative b over 2 times a. So my b value is negative 12. So I've got the negative of negative 12 over 2 times a, and my value of a was 2 as well. So that gives me the opposite of negative 12 is 12. 2 times 2 is 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So that gives me an axis of symmetry of x is equal to 3. I'm going to put a little square around that, a rectangle around that. Now at this point, I like to start my graph. So I'm going to just sketch my graph over here. So axis of symmetry means that it's the vertical line that our parabola is symmetrical to on both sides of it. So there looks like 3 to me, so there's my equation, x is equal to 3. So that's the first step. Next thing we're going to find is we're going to find the vertex. Well, by definition, our vertex has to go on that axis of symmetry line. It has to be somewhere on here. We talked about this when we talked about it in vertex form, but the vertex is always going to be on that axis of symmetry. So if it's going to be on that axis of symmetry, then we know that x value has to be 3. Well, how are we going to find the y value? Well, we know our x value at our equation has to be 3. So if I go into my original equation, y is equal to 2x squared minus 12x plus 7. If I go into that equation and I substitute what I know my x value is, I can then solve for y. So that's going to give me 2 times 3 squared minus 12 times 3 plus 7. Now make sure you follow order of operations. 3 squared is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. Minus 12 times 3 is 36. And you're going to add 7 to that. So we've got 18 minus 36. 18 minus 36 is negative 18. Negative 18, so negative 11. So I've got a vertex at 3, negative 11. So I'm going to go over to my graph. 3, negative 11. I'm going to say in my world is right there. So now I've got my vertex. The last part of this is we want to find the y-intercept. The y-intercept is the point 0c. So my y value, my x value is going to be 0. My c value from up above is 7. So my y-intercept is 0, 7. So 0, 7 on my graph is right there. Now remember, when we're doing these, the vertex is either the highest point or the lowest point of your graph. How do I know if this goes up or down? Well, just like we did in vertex form, we look at that a value. The a value is positive. Since the a value is positive, we know our graph is going to go up. So my vertex is in the blue, so we're going to go up in this direction. Okay, so that's kind of that left-hand side. Well, how do we do the right-hand side? Well, today what we're going to say is we're going to say, okay, we know this distance. We've talked about symmetric stuff. That's the point 0, 7, and the vertex is the point 3, negative 11. So I know that distance is 3. So because that's the axis of symmetry then, I know I have to go 3 values this way, and I can put another point because it's symmetrical. And then we can graph the second part of it. So there's the graph of the equation. Y is equal to 2x squared minus 12x plus 7. Let's look at another one. Let's go y is equal to negative x squared plus 2x minus 3. Okay, it's in standard form. Perfect. My a value is negative 1. Remember, it's the value that's out in front of the x squared. There's not really a number there, but there's understood to be a 1. B is equal to 2, and C is equal to negative 3. So we're going to find that axis of symmetry. Formula, x is equal to negative b over 2 times a. So that's the negative of 2, just negative 2, over 2 times negative 1. So that's negative 2 over negative 2, which is just equal to 1. So my axis of symmetry, x is equal to 1. I'm going to go ahead and graph that. That's a vertical line at x is equal to 1. Step 2, we're going to find the vertex. I know my x value at the vertex is 1 because my axis of symmetry, my vertex has to go on that axis of symmetry. I'm going to go ahead then and substitute it in to my equation. Y is equal to negative x squared plus 2x minus 3. Now I know what my x value is. So got to be careful with this because that's the negative of 1 squared plus 2 times 1 minus 3. So 1 squared is 1. So this is actually negative 1 plus 2 minus 3. And that looks like that's probably negative 4. Negative 1 plus 2, negative 2. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1, minus 3, so negative 2. So there's my vertex at 1, negative 2. Now we find our y-intercept. Our y-intercept is the point, 0, c. My c value is negative 3, so that's 0, negative 3. If I do 0, negative 3, if I look at that vertex was at 1, negative 2. Okay, so I know where that vertex is at 1, negative 2, so my c value has got to be lower than it. So it's down here somewhere. Now, let's think about it. Does it make sense that the y-intercept is lower than this one? Yes, it does, because if we look at our a value, it's negative. So that tells us this graph has to go down. So my vertex is now my highest point. So now my graph is going to go on the left-hand side from my vertex through that y-intercept. We know this distance is 1. We got to go 1 this way over, put a point, and then draw our second half. Okay. So there's finding axis of symmetry, the vertex, y-intercept, and graphing if you have something in standard form.